So when I think about the vest, I've been wearing this vest since the first winter of 2014. It got cold. I needed something that I could wear that I would never have to pack. This was easy. The reason that I continue to wear it is that it reminds me of everything we went through and that it was real, that it was illegal to stand still, that was real, the pepper spray, the tear gas, we were in the street for 400 days. All of those things were real. I think about the vest as like my tattoo, and that's why I wear it. You know, we were in the street for a long time, and when I think about those early days in St. Louis, I never want to forget that that was real. So if you ever saw us marching in the street in St. Louis in August, September, October 2014, it was illegal to stand still in those days. There was a 5-second rule that if we stood still for more than 5 seconds, we'd be arrested. Yeah, so it was the police in St. Louis made up a rule that if we stood still for more than 5 seconds, we'd be arrested. The way that their intent, I think they thought that by them making us walk, that we were going to be so tired that we were going to go home. And instead we were like, well, if we got to walk, you got to walk. And everybody was walking all night. So that was why we marched in the beginning. It wasn't that we thought marching was particularly the most effective thing to do, but that we knew that if we kept marching, they would have to be outside too. And like we did it. And, you know, we were in the street from like 7 to the morning. Yeah, I'm noting that, you know, there are many ways to be in protest. And what we could have done is just like stand in one place and shut down streets and da-da-da. And we did that in some ways, but there were certain parts of St. Louis where we literally just had to walk. Like if we didn't walk, everybody would have been arrested. And we were like, you know, we'll use this to our advantage and force the police to move too. And it was a really effective way to block, to move, to tackle in ways that we hadn't anticipated. Ferguson is one part of St. Louis County, and in Ferguson is a majority of person of color, black community, but that was not, the community we're in wasn't why the rule existed. Our bodies in the street was why the rule existed. So it was black people in the street, regardless of whether the community was black or not, which is why the police deemed us a threat and made us walk. You know, so I'm proud to say I was on many people in the street in St. Louis in the early days, have been in most of the cities in protest. So Baltimore, my hometown, Charleston, Minneapolis, so many places where there was a need for us to talk about what was happening and use our platforms to amplify it. I did and continue to have a large social media platform, and that was important to help us like figure out how to get people in one place, how to centralize messages, those sort of things. And then very quickly we realized that we needed to figure out like why this was happening all over the country. We created Campaign Zero, in which there are two big things. So one is the first public database of police union contracts in the country, and the second is the first public database of use of force policies in the country. And we also created the most comprehensive database of police violence data in the country. So those are the things that we use. So when I think about my activism today, it is deeply rooted in a focus on systems and structures. Like, how do we change the system and structure using all the energy that we've done around awareness to make sure that the outcomes change? You know, when I think about what it means to be an activist for me today, it is deeply rooted in how we change systems and structures. So in the beginning, it was focused on bringing awareness. Like that was why we were in the street. I'm one of many people who was in the street. Today, it is focused on like, what do we do at the root level? So when I think about, we created the first public database of use of force policies, police union contracts, the most comprehensive database around police violence data, all like with the aim of trying to think about like, how do we change this at the root? Yeah, when I think about these titles of like, what does it mean to be an activist or a militant, I'm less interested in how people identify. I'm more interested in the work they do. So when I think about myself, the work that I do is deeply rooted in changing systems and structures at the root level. That means something different to a lot of people. I also think about myself as somebody who helps people find their own power and use that at scale. So some people call that organizing, but I'm less interested in the label, more interested in the work. So what I know to be true is that God didn't create Earth, man, and white supremacy, that we can actually undo all of this. That when we say the system is broken and people say back to us, oh no, it was designed to be like that, my takeaway is that it was designed because people made it up, we can make something different. You know, interesting is when we think about why the term and the phrase Black Lives Matter makes sense or is important, one is this notion that if I go to a colon cancer rally, it doesn't mean that I don't care about breast cancer, that we can actually focus on one thing and that doesn't detract from the other things that we do. The second is that the reason that we focus on black people so much is that the disparities towards black people and the disparities amongst black people are just so great that if we fix it for black people, we actually fix it for everybody else automatically. And that's why we talk about this term. That's why the term has resonance and matters. When I think about the biggest fear in the movement space, it is that I think that there are a lot of people who don't think that we can win. And the absence of thinking that we can win is really dangerous in this work. That when people stop believing that we can win with the capital W, they try to win with the lowercase w. And I've seen that do a lot of damage. That one of the things about blackness that is actually our gift is that we know how to thrive in the midst of constraints. We know what it's like to have no toys and still have joy outside. We know what it's like to not have a lot of money to buy food and still eat incredible meals. Like we know how to experience a lot of joy and beauty in the midst of constraints. The hard thing that becomes, though, is that sometimes all we see is constraints. So when we think about building a bigger, better world, is that like that requires us to like not only accept this world as it is, but to really believe something bigger than this.